What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
I'm Kevin.
And we're last week's album. We're bringing you two opinions on the best new music. And this week we're talking about Dark Bird is Home by the tallest man on earth. And we're asking the question, does DBIH find TTMOE soaring even higher? And that's a mouthful. But before we go any further in answering the question and maybe even explain what those acronyms are, we're going to start things off like we always do, drinking a beer. Cheers, Kevin. Cheers, everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek, and everyone at home.
And in case you still haven't figured out that acronym, DBIH, Dark Bird is Home, name of the album, and TTMOE, the tallest man on earth. So if you're wondering who the tallest man on earth is, that is Kristian Matsson. He is from, I wish I'd put this in my notes earlier, a Scandinavian country, but he has gained notoriety for a rich Americana sound over his last albums. Dark Bird is Home is his fourth full-length album and follows There's No Leaving Now, which came out in 2012, which I think it may or may not have been one of the last written last week's album reviews that we did way back in the day before we jumped the shark to video, which I think we can all agree was a very good decision. Interesting note, also, Matsson produced this record, and by a lot of accounts, this is one of his most personal album from a lyrical standpoint yet. So there's some background. Now let's talk about what it sounds like. Kevin, what did you think?
Derek, I think Dark Bird is Home sounds like Bright Eyes meets Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Mine's actually going to be pretty darn close. I think Dark Bird is Home sounds like Conor Oberst, and Bon Iver had a very, very big music baby. And I say big only because it's the tallest man on earth. But I like your Bruce Springsteen thing because on Bon Iver's most recent album, he had some 80s sounding synths and stuff in there, which I think you're going for in the sounds like. So I totally see what you're going with there. That brings us to key tracks. Kevin, what did you have?
I'm going with track number 4. It's called Slow Dance. What about you?
I'm going with track number 7, and that's called Timothy. Just Timothy. So why don't you start us off?
Sure. Slow Dance has this faint harmonica, which I don't think is totally new, but alludes to the added instrumentation on the album. There's also some staccato vocals, some quick strummed guitar, some very sparse piano, and then it gets even crazier with some distant trumpets coming in later. And toward the end, we get some sort of echoing vocals. There's a really nice line here. He says, "But then I know that I'm a stranger in this land, and I wake you up by speaking what you cannot understand. All I said was there were mountains in my way, but they're slowly disappearing, and I balance when I feel you to my skin." So it's clearly a song about falling in love and the openness and vulnerability that comes along with that. Derek, you mentioned this is one of his most personal albums, so maybe that's an element of truth from his life. And overall, it's just a feel-good track that mixes really strong melodies with interesting instruments, and very upbeat vibes. So that's why I'm digging it. Tell us about Timothy, Derek.
Timothy, there's a lively strummed acoustic guitar that really kind of serves as the backbone of the song here. There's what I think is a mandolin or similar string instrument hook that comes on in a recurring theme here. Really catchy, really adds a lot to the lively strummed acoustic guitar. There's a plodding bass snare drum beat and subtle piano and strings later on. So really a lot of rich texture from a instrumental standpoint. The overall theme of the song lyrically I thought was a little difficult to discern, but I think it's kind of a call to action for Timothy to broaden his horizons and see the world with an open mind. And he achieves this through very vivid images and name-dropping of geographic locations to really kind of hit it home, if you will. One example lyric that I really liked, he says, "It only takes a gravel road in Missouri light, rolling to the way back when, simple was all right." Really, simple, but at the same time kind of saying a lot. And simple is all right, and I think he might kind of achieve this on this album. But I'm jumping ahead, so before we go any further, we're going to talk about best lyrics. So, Kevin, what did you have?
Sure. I'm going to go with a different line for my key track, Slow Dance. And in the line, he says, "Get around. This is handsome life. I guess my rhythm grew through my darker time." And I feel like it kind of summed up the album pretty well, sort of taking tough experiences and turning them into optimistic art. And as always, I just love the words that he puts together. Handsome life. No one else would say that but the tallest man on earth. So really great, even just down to 2 words there. What's your best lyric, Derek?
Kevin, I think you can say anything when you're looking down on everyone, but that's besides the point. My best lyric is coming from a song called Little Nowhere Towns, and I think this is going to speak right to your point that you're just discussing there. He says, "And I'm racing through my pockets now because I'm starting to believe. Selling emptiness to strangers a little warmer than my dreams." Just the dichotomy of a lot of these words coming together just really intrigued me. The phrase "racing through my pockets" was fantastic. So just in a little bit there, I thought lyrically there was a lot going on and just really caught my attention. So we've been kind of alluding to maybe good ratings here, but before we get into that, we're going to ask the question again. Does DBIH find TTMOE soaring even higher? Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure. I'll start with answering the question. I think it does find him soaring even higher. It's sort of funny. You'd expect more openness on maybe his previous, more stripped-down albums. And this one, he seems to be actually bearing more of himself with more instrumentation, which is really interesting if you think about it. Overall rating, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. I thought it's mature without being boring. It's sort of summery almost without being too sweet. And he makes some really interesting new choices. Obviously added instrumentation, but also in the more personal lyrics and the more upbeat, sort of optimistic tunes than usual. And he's also changing up his voice more than before, which I think is brave, given that that's one of his hallmarks, that sort of scratchy voice, that it comes out a lot smoother, and also changing from song to song here, which I think is a really, really good improvement for him. So 4 out of 5. What do you think?
Good taste, good takes. I kind of went back to his last album a little bit earlier before we started recording right now, and yeah, I think the biggest contrast that immediately jumped out to me was the vocals and just kind of how it's produced, and a much more approachable or just a lot more real, I guess you could say. To answer the question, does this album find Tallest Man on Earth soaring even higher? Yes, I completely agree. I think we've kind of alluded to this, the expanded instrumentation, but at the same time, I think he did something pretty interesting here. I think on his last album, there wasn't as diverse instrumentation, but a big change was more electric guitar from acoustic guitar previously. And I think here he kind of went back to more acoustic guitar stuff, but then added in a lot more different instruments around it. And so I thought that was great, the way he continued to expand the sound through other instruments while retaining that core acoustic guitar sound that really brought him notoriety in the first place. So I totally agree. I think a lot more maturity here. Even though some of the lyrical content at time might be a little more darker as opposed to earlier work, the overall sound is much warmer, and I think creates a very nice contrast to maybe the more darker or personal stories going on there. So that being said, I'm going to agree with you and going rating a 4 here as well. So that brings an total rating of 8 out of 10 from both Kevin and I. So you really need to go check out Dark Bird is Home by Tallest Man on Earth. And don't forget to subscribe to us at Last Week's Album. We'll bring you 2 opinions on the best new music every week, or at least most every week, except for last week we took off vacation. Come on now. And until next time, we'll catch you all later. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. See you next time.